50th anniversary. Well, we weren't, I don't know if St. Louis group existed then, but we didn't exist. But in 1983, a group of us with Father Fiorelli went, and including his mother, went to Paris, to our headquarters, and also to Annecy. And that, of course, is where St. Francis, near there where he was born, where he lived, and St. Jane founded the Visitation of the Holy Mary. So that was another, and then we went on down into Rome, and we had an audience with the Pope. No, I'm sorry, I was in Rome in 1947, I think, or 49. That's when I met Pope Pius XII.
Oh, you did?
And there were about, I had been in Stockholm, Sweden for a meeting of the International Council of Nurses, and we took a trip from Sweden. I had this 6 weeks trip through Europe. It cost $2,000, including the passage over and back on the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary.
Oh, wow.
Would you believe that?
That was a bargain.
Those were bargain days. But anyway, we got to Rome. I don't know how this audience was, having an audience in those days was very easy, apparently. I think there were about 17 of us. And we stood around the room, and the Holy Father came in, and he went around, shook all of our hands, asked us where we were from and what we were doing, and gave us his blessing.
Oh.
So that was really, really the highlight of that trip.
Yes.
I'm afraid I'm getting off the track, Laura.
Well, you're back to Father Fiorelli taking you to, and a group to
But
Paris.
we didn't have an audience with the Pope with Father Fiorelli. I think that time we were in Rome when Maximilian Kolbe was canonized.
Oh, okay.
And we were in St. Peter's Square with thousands of people. And the Germans were pushing us in every direction. And I had a friend with me, Grace Donovan, a dear friend, and she was quite tiny, and I felt she was even going to be crushed by all these people. And I said, I hope I never come back here again. I've never been back to Rome.
Oh.
I had such a negative feeling about that experience, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
But anyway, so what else is new? We had that luncheon at Beth's house, and then Beth said she was going to start gathering people from the choir. That's how you got involved, Laura.
Yeah.
And
Were you in the
Gloria.
choir at that time?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Gloria Klepczynski. I started in the choir in 1967.
Yeah.
I had a home mass, and Father Bryant, he said the mass, and Gloria Klepczynski was there. And Father Bryant said, "Why don't you join the choir, Dorothy?" And I never had any musical training, but and she said, "Gloria's in the choir." So I decided to join the choir, which was great joy. I really enjoyed those 23 or 4 years.
Oh, yes, it was wonderful.
And
Carmen Shaw,
Carmen Shaw,
Teresa Giral,
right, and Margarita.
Margarita.
But anyway, the early group, Beth was rounding up these people, and we were to have a monthly meeting and share. We were to read the Introduction to the Devout Life, And at that time, the only thing in English by St. Francis de Sales in or about him was the Devout Life and the
Treatise.
treatise on the love of God. So anyway, well, I'm going to divert a minute, bring me back to the meetings.
Okay.
But I mentioned the Devout Life because on Sunday afternoon, we had the pleasure of going to occasionally to Visitation Convent on 35th Street. And there was an oblate of St. Francis de Sales who came once a month to talk to us, and he was Father Comney.
Yes.
And he came from the sort of the head house in Childs, Maryland. And so this was a very pleasant Sunday afternoon, and he would talk with us. Oh, he was just, these words just flowed out of his mouth. He was a brilliant man, and so pleasant and lovely, like all of. So going back to the meetings, then we're going to have these monthly meetings. Well, at that time my mother was living with me, and she wasn't very well. So I said, I don't think I could go to the meetings were to be Saturday morning. And during the week at night for anyone who was working. But I don't think we had many evening meetings. Even though I was working and many people were working, they weren't working on Saturday. So Saturday seemed to have worked out quite well.
It did, yeah.
And I said, I have Mother with me, and I don't think I could leave her. So she was willing to have the meetings at my house. And in the beginning then, we started on the Devout Life. And we were assigned certain chapters beginning with with number 1. And we started to go through them. And she was in charge in every meeting. And one time I said to her, well, Beth, you should share that and let some of us be in charge sometime. Oh no, she said, I have to do this. But eventually she did agree that we should different ones should accept the responsibility for doing the reading and leading the discussion. And then also about Beth, when we always had little refreshments before meeting began, and Beth had some kind of a health problem. Do you remember what it was?
She had low blood sugar, I think, was one of them.
Anyway, you always had to have some protein for her, some cheese. The rest of us would have biscuits and muffins and sweet things, coffee
and juice.
But anyway, I had a lot of pictures of Beth with groups.
Oh.
And I've given those all to Marianne Kahn, who was our Bethesda group leader. And, but Beth, after a while, she moved to Chestertown, Maryland. She had a daughter who I think had some problems. And they moved this was about 2 hours east of Washington.
Yes.
And Howard stayed in town. He took an apartment at the Watergate in Virginia, and came to Chestertown on the weekends. And Beth, we went to Chestertown a few times.
Yes, we did.
And I remember Madeline Lacavara went on that. I always think of Madeline Lacavara when I think of the probation on is it a spiritual energy?
Yes.
And there's a sentence in that says, tailor my energies to your requirements, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I remember she made a comment about that phrase, and it has always stuck with me.
Oh.
And whenever I think of Madeline Lacavara, I think of that phrase.
Isn't that interesting?
So also after a while, we began to, I think by that time my mother was in the nursing home. We began to meet in each other's homes. And I remember going to your house
Yes.
and getting lost, trying to find it. Ling Lee was with me. She had a GPS so she could get me there. And I remember going to Madeline Lacavara's house on V Street.
Yes.
And Gloria's house, and
And Susie Canelli.
Yes. And Margarita's.
Yes.
Those were the good old days. They really
Well, we were. The nice thing about our beginning was everyone belonged to Our Lady of Victory.
Right.
So we were all close as far as homes went, and it made it easy to travel.
Right.
To each other's homes,
Right.
and we were small. And tell us a little bit about Father Mealy coming to our
Yes.
meetings.
Well, after I don't know remember exactly when he started to come, but this Father Mealy was then what would he be called?
Well,
He
he had not been ordained,
No.
a mister, I guess,
or Mark.
A deacon the year before ordination.
Right. Mark Mealy came down from Philadelphia on the early morning train. He must have gotten up at 4 o'clock.
Yes, he did.
Like the Pope does now. And he came on the first train from Philadelphia, took a cab, and came to my house. I should have fed him breakfast. I don't remember.
Oh, I'm sure you did. You always had refreshments.
Well, anyway, he came and he was meeting with us, and he was taking us through the Gospels. And I remember especially Luke, which is my favorite gospel.
Yes, he was the doctor.
And of course, then in a year or two, he was ordained in Philadelphia, and Laura, and several of us, who else? Beth, and Margarita.
Joan Bates, Margarita.
Went up to
And
Joan Bates.
I see her. Little Latino. Was it Pilar? And the other lady that she went out to California.
Oh, yeah. I know.
I
It
don't
may
know.
come to me.
It will come to me too.
Right.
This is terrible.
We went up to Philadelphia for the weekend for Father Mark's ordination, and it was at the Cathedral of Saints Peter and Paul, right on the Parkway, I guess it is, or right in downtown Philadelphia, which was the scene today of the papal mass of Pope Francis.
Yes.
And it brought back to me so many memories of that ordination. As a matter of fact, it's the only ordination I've ever attended. But to see the priest, on the altar with face down, it was so impressive. And we spent the weekend up there, as I recall.
Yes.
And that was really a great experience.
And we got Father Mark's first blessings.
Yes, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. And So I haven't seen him through the years, and that I regret. He was over in Arlington and had a very important post as vicar, counselor, what is that?
Yes, it's the number 2.
Legal, what is the legal? Canon lawyer.
Yes, he's a canon lawyer.
An aide to the bishop.
Yes.
And
He'll be leaving at the end of this month.
Oh, I thought it was October.
Well, yeah, end of October, yes. I'm thinking it's October already. I'm ahead of myself.
Right.
But yes, Father Mealy has been a wonderful support, as have so many of the oblates.
Right.
We are indebted to them, and also we can talk about our first retreat at the Visitation Convent. Mother Mary Leonard welcomed us with open arms, and we had our retreats, and Delphine was wondering why they were so cheap, but we brought our own food.
Right.
And the only thing we paid for was the priest's stipend, I think, and a donation to the sisters.
I think you did the cooking. I remember going to the commissary and buying a lot of food and taking it.
Oh yes, yes.
Then we had another retreat at Georgetown. I don't know whether we did the cooking at this point, but I think it was at Georgetown. We had this retreat, and it was more like.
Is that the one that Delphine came to, and she said it wasn't a
Yes,
retreat? It was
right.
a workshop.
Right. It was more like a workshop, But I should go back and talk a little bit about Delphine.
Yes.
If I may.
Yes.
I have my sister Jane died a few months ago at the age of 90, and she lived in St. Louis. So I was often in St. Louis to see her and her family, or on business, and as a result of that, I often got to see Delphine.
Yes.
And you knew you were in the presence of a holy person when you met Delphine. She was the essence of simplicity, quietude. You know, she was just peaceful. Yes.
And yet very warm.
Right.
You didn't feel like you were uncomfortable with her at all.
No, she made you feel very comfortable. So anyway, she invited me to come to a retreat. Well, I had never made a retreat. I had been to the Day of Recollection